Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video I will start with a slightly philosophical question. Why, since this video has a title and I think a kind of explanatory enough thumbnail, do I bother telling you what the video is about in the beginning? So since you know what this video is about, let's get talking about it. So what we are trying to do here is trying to make a guitar sound out of a synth. Is it possible? Is it feasible? Is it hard? Is it easy? Well, it has some history. Like synths have been made to, recreate physical sounds from the beginning, from the early ideas of the whole series of patches for the Moo, some sort of recipes or synth cookbooks or stuff like that that was there at the time, even in the manuals. And evolved into a lot of things, including a bunch of instruments which were somehow dedicated to replicating the sound of instruments, even others specifically dedicated to replicating the sound and the playability of a guitar. I remember there was even some weird thing from Roland which allowed you to strum on the left side. Instead of being there a mod wheel and a pitch wheel, there were strings, so you could play a chord with your right hand, while with your left hand you were strumming. And this gets to the point we're trying to get to, which is what the instrument we're talking about is. A guitar. Let me get it on screen. Yep. Here we have a guitar, and what we're trying to do is replicate the DI sound of it. And I will not be making the DI sound of it, even though this guitar supposedly might allow me to, since it has its piezos and everything. But I'm just playing it here in front of the microphone. No, I'm not really playing it. I'm not exposing you to my guitar playing, and I'm not that sadistic. So the thing is, a guitar sounds, something like everyone knows how it sounds. But how is this sound made? Well, there's strings, of course. It's kind of a primitive instrument, really primitive if you think about it. I mean, really, as a synth player, do you realize I'm actually touching with my fingers the things that make the sound themselves, the vibrating part of the instrument itself. I mean, it would be just like if I was touching inappropriately my woofers while they're playing. It's crazy. I mean, really, guitar players are strange people. Now, having put this little bit of humor and description out of the topic, let's examine what the instrument really is. We have strings, and I have here a pick, or I could be using my fingers if I were really not being grossed out by the idea of touching the strings. And this is the thing that somehow creates the tuned part of the sound. So, but everyone knows, or maybe, should know, that there is something else here. There is this whole resonant body of wood with some hollow part into it. And when we're trying about replicating the sound of a guitar, we have to wonder actually a guitar or any other instrument, by the way, up to what point we intend to simulate it. Because this instrument by itself, the sound generation method, it's kind of simple. Then we would have to replicate the resonant structure of it. And then we would have to replicate all the stuff that comes after it. Well, yeah, really, you mean if it's just a DI sound, no, there's no stuff beyond it. But, the thing is, when you're playing an instrument or emulating an instrument, you should consider, or maybe deliberately not consider, all the things that compose the sound itself. You see, when you hear me talking right now, you hear my voice, you're not really hearing my voice. You're hearing the speaker of whatever device you are listening to, replicating the sound that comes from the converters of there are uphill of that, being amplified by some whatever amplifier your device has. And what this stuff is replicating is actually the sound coming out of my OBS studio there, which is getting the ASIO straight from Bitwig, which is getting my voice, which is getting through an EQ, a compressor, some reverb, a de-esser, a lot of stuff, right? So if you just wanted to reproduce that, and if you hear this guitar here, this is actually going through to the very same chain, including my horrible Focusrite preamps. Are we trying to replicate all that or not? Beyond this, there's another thing we should be considering. It's the fact that, a guitar, since it's such a gross instrument, makes a lot of different noises. And even the same note can sound a lot different. See, if I play this here, it's one thing, but if I go and I pick it closer to the resonant point, it will get, I will get a stronger fundamental and a bunch of other, even this frequency response is different. And the length and the decay, like if I was doing some palm muting, like a metal head. It's not the same thing as doing this, right? It's completely different. So what are we trying to reproduce? Well, yeah, I'm gonna restrict the field of this significantly. So how are we going to make this guitar happen in our synths? Well, as you can see from the screen here, the tool I'm going to be using first is Triple Cheese. Why? Well, because it's a very basic synth based on comb filters. And comb filters are, the comb filters, they are the tool for the so-called physical modeling synthesis. I mean, it's not like physical modeling, at least in theory, doesn't mean a lot more than that. But ultimately, if you think about what a physical source of a tuned sound is, well, it is nothing somehow but something which resonates at a given frequency and its multiples. So ultimately, you see a guitar is a comb filter. At least part of it is a comb filter, not the entirety of it. And it is one of the easiest sounds to make with the comb filters. So much that if you get this patch, which I didn't make, I mean, this is the default starting patch. If you download and install and start Triple Cheese, a few, I don't even remember if they're kilobytes or it gets to be megabytes. It's really a minuscule synth composed by 3 comb filter modules, which is kind of great at doing these things. It has a bunch of very good presets, and even beyond that, there's not much to mess around with, but that little that there is does a lot in this department. So, well, this is somehow the first tool I'd think of using for doing something like this. Not very structured, but it works. I could also do a similar thing with SurgeXT. Basically I'm using this string model of an oscillator, and guess what? It works like a string. In this case, I'm basically using only one string. I made the balance entirely to string 2. No idea why string 2 and not string 1. I mean, just needed one string at a time. And this, would you say it doesn't sound very guitar-like? Yeah, it doesn't, because I'm playing it with my fingers on a keyboard. And that's the real point. You see, playing a guitar in the way it was somehow intended to be played, beyond all the personalizations and all the techniques, the idea of basically blocking a string at a fret and then playing a note just doesn't produce a sound much different from this, does it? Well, actually, it does. And it does that because, you see, this, of course, has no characteristics of a guitar. If you want to have some of those, I might need to get something else in. And here I am using this thing, which is Nadir. It's a free IR loader. Why am I using an IR loader? Well, because I am not gonna be bothered with the maths or understanding, and not only me, I mean, no one would really be bothered with the maths of understanding exactly what is happening inside the resonating body of a guitar and what is resonating and whatnot. No, what you just do is get an impulse response of the aforementioned guitar and just use a powerful mathematics technique called convolution and convolve your string sound with the body of a guitar of your choice. This was a Takamine I found somewhere. It was the IR of a Takamine guitar. I don't even know what guitar it is in particular, but there's plenty of free IRs around here. And if you have a guitar you really fancy and you want to get the IR out of, well, you might bother finding a technique for doing it. And now it is that same string from SurgeXT being played through this image response of a Takamine guitar. If I turn it off, you will see it's different, and if I turn it on, we get this whole thing, which gives us a little bit of the phase response and a lot, more importantly, of the response in the form and structure of the guitar, which makes it a lot more physical. Even though SurgeXT offers you that string oscillator, which is kind of great for doing this kind of things, and also allows you to have comb filters here in the effect filter menu, and also has this very interesting feedback function, which allows you to make these things in a more interesting way, this is actually better suited for a slightly more sophisticated, let's say, physical modeling patches like the flutes I was doing earlier, because it's kind of an overkill to use this all synth just for stringish sound. If you're feeling creative or even slightly a bit masochistic, you can use two synths and just get, say, Surge to make this noise, and then have this delay in an initialized state doing the rest. So if I make it all wet, and I just get this delay thing. But if I set these delays to be not just, delays in tempo, but becoming following my key tracking strictly, I put them as to be note fine, I will have that each and every one of these will be a comb filter perfectly tuned to, and I can raise the feedback as to make it infinite notes. But unfortunately, it ends up being strictly monophonic. It gets interesting because you see here I have 4, so I can get and I can get to a bunch of instruments such as 12 strings guitars or things like that, or fados, which have like two or more. Actually, I haven't seen an instrument which has more than 3 strings to play one note, but at least 2 strings intended to be played at the same time. Creating a patch that does the same thing or kind of the same thing is vital is kind of trivial. You would get an envelope, a very short one, controlling the volume of your noise, and you can actually go and check a lot of things. Here in this case I've done it in a way so that it was, as you can see, just a very, very small hold. And I can make it longer, things get not nice. But at the other hand, you could do it like having, hold to 0 and getting it a slight decay, which is actually physically more sensible, while having our comb filter here with basically unmodified except for a cranked up resonant, having key tracking to the max. Here cutoff is being controlled, the cutoff of the other filter, the internal low pass filter, is controlled by the velocity, because so that I have this interesting effect. I could actually raise the velocity key tracking of everything so that even the volume will I have set it there to be some vibrato with aftertouch, which I think is kind of cool. And this is basically everything you might need to do with it. Another thing you might want to do is add a second filter for different purposes. I mean, like actually, more of for doing the thing that we were earlier doing with our IR response. It's not the same thing, but it's just saying this has some other fixed form and structure beyond having what is the simple tuned sound generation. And if I move this around, I get the idea. I get the idea of different guitar-like bodies. You see, you might make possible, non-existent objects with, like some strings on top, a neck, which are being played and which will resonate with a series of peaks somewhere. There, I'm doing it with a filter here, which is also polyphonic, which is kind of useless because it's not being controlled by the key tracking in any way. So I could be doing the very same thing here from this filter, or with an EQ, which is somehow the most obvious choice for these things. On the other hand, you will find, if you are looking for realism, you will definitely not be finding anything more realistic than using a convolution on an actual guitar. It is somehow the thing that killed physical modeling synthesis, because you see, the thing is, we can make things sound like the actual, we can make things sound like the real thing. Can we or can we not? Yes, we can get kind of close, we can get closer, yeah, but can we get closer than we would with, proper intelligent use of sampling? In a world where hard drives are terabytes wide, terabytes big, there's so much so much room for everything. I mean, even mostly electronic-oriented synths now come with huge libraries of samples. When you see pigments or stuff like that, comes with gigabytes of sounds, whatever. And this is the reason, you know, the whole thing of physical modeling kind of died. And there's like me and a few other people still talking about it, using it. And I mean, it's, you know, if you are really trying to make something realistic, usually you wouldn't do things like this. There's the libraries in Contact or in whatever your favorite sample player is, and if you got the money to dish out, there's gonna people who have been sampling everything to death. So, but if you are one of those people who really like to make their sounds, you probably know what this thing here is, right? It's Zebra 2. It's a wonderful, very powerful, very famous, now a little old modular synthesizer. And what it has as this comb module, which is awesome. And the thing I can do here, I can have a lot of different comb algorithms, I mean comb structures in which you see the comb filters, the delays, and some filter in the routing is set up so that I can make a lot of different combing. There's a very accurate description of what every mode does in the manual, but one thing is for sure, it's amazing for making kind of convincing guitars. I think kind of convincing. You don't find them convincing, you want something else, you want the sound, the convolution of the Takamine on top of it. You see, the only thing I myself feel like I'm really missing at this point is some reverb. And you see, it wouldn't really be difficult to get some. Shall we get some reverb and play some reverb on top of it? Just a basic reverb from from Bitwig itself, and here it is. Do we have reverb? Yep, we have reverb, and here it is. And let me get Zebra out of the way. Sorry, I'm moving it everywhere. I should do something. I'm sorry, I cannot really play a synth pretending it's a guitar. I cannot play a guitar either, but the thing is, this does sound like a guitar, doesn't it? So this was it. And I hope it satisfies you. If you think, hey, but all you've said is just slap a tuned comb filter on top of a short burst of noise, that's all you said? Yeah, that's all I said. Because if you think about it, I mean, I could be getting into picky, I would say, anal details about how to model this or that other guitar, and that could be interesting, but seriously, it would take a lot of time to get there in a sensible way, and I really have no specific guitar to be chasing right now, as there are countless guitars. You know, it's very primitive instruments. We built lots and lots of different guitars, even though we keep playing only the same, like 3 or 4 for decades and decades. But the thing is, every guitar, be it an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, a resophonic guitar, a mandolin, a ukulele, an ancient lute, a fado, a bouzouki. Stop me, please. A ukulele. No, yes, I had said ukulele already. Yeah, I had. Oh, you know, they all have a neck. They all have a string which gets plucked, and so you know the sound generation mechanism is basically the same. And all you'll need to do in order to get to a realistic reproduction of one or the other is fine-tune small little things to get it closer to what you want. And I cannot really tell you how to do that. I mean, case by case. First, because it would take forever, and second, because I am not so sure I could. So I hope you liked the video, and I hope you will forgive this one again for me being a little bit dumber than usual, but it's still terribly hot, as you can see. It's been terribly hot. This video has been recorded in like 4 different takes because I was dying by sweat every like few minutes, and so be forgiving, please. This said, if you are forgiving and understanding and you actually liked it, please consider subscribing and watching some of the stuff I did when it was a little less hot and I could actually connect my neurons and think and say sensible things to a camera. And yeah, there's a description in which there will be all my links, all that interesting stuff that I say at every video I make. And yeah, so just if you feel like checking that stuff out, give me some plays on my songs anyway, buy some of my tracks, buy some of my patches on Gumroad. Yeah, I would really love that. Yeah, and this is it. I did everything. I talked about guitars, I did my mandatory little bit of promotion, and so bye.